So this is my 200-year-old half hatchet, which is super sharp. I'll put a link in the description below for its restoration. Now I'm going to make a sheath for it. So my process, when I make a sheath, I typically take a piece of paper like this and try to get the rough shape of the axe. This helps me to get a sheath that really fits it exactly. I like to create sheaths that don't just protect the edge, but protect the top of the handle where it's attached into the axe. That's a place that it can be laid down if you have some leather over top of it, that it doesn't affect the end grain of the head where the wedge is and the metal wedge. So I like to draw it out, then just cut out the shape. Make sure that it fits correctly, as I assumed. And in this one, I actually found this leather belt at the thrift store that I wanted to include. It's a Calvin Klein belt. It has a little CK stamped on the end that I debated whether or not I should keep it or not, and I thought, who cares? It adds a little character. I like making thrifted things, so this is how I do it. This leather actually also that I'm using for the main part of the sheath is leather that is from an old seat. So like on a chair. It's nice, already stained leather. It just has an unfinished end that I'll take care of later. So I'm just using parts of the belt then to create the welt in the sheath so that it can butt up against the blade inside. I'm just clamping these parts to test fit and then also to hold everything in place while I then do the hole punching for the stitches. So I've got a bunch of binder clips holding it all together so that because I've got so many pieces here, I don't want them to slip and move around as I do this, the hole punching and the stitching. So I double stitch this. I stitch all the way out and then all the way back in to make the double stitch. I don't do the 2 needles typically. And then instead of tying things off, because I'm using artificial sinew here, I just melt the ends. Now that I've got it stitched, I'm just trimming off the excess to match everything up to the curve of the blade. And then I'm going to mark out the lines of where I'm going to do the stitching on the end here that'll hold in the welt and hold the two halves of the sheath together. Again, just punching the holes. Because this was so thick, I ended up having to punch it twice from each side. So it was important that I got the measurements and the stamps as accurate as I could so that when I stitch it, the needles went through. If you notice here, yeah, I started to lose the welt there. I had to push it back in and repound some in. Now the stitching. And the beginning here and the end is really quite easy because it's just 2 little pieces, but as I got into it, it got really difficult when you're stitching through, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of leather. It got quite hard. Using a thimble was important. Using my Leatherman to pull the needles through. It took quite a bit to get it. I didn't capture all of that in the video, but here I'm just finishing it off. But again, it was double stitched down and then back and just melting the ends. Then to finish off the edge, I just took it to my belt sander really quick and just ground away the leather, cleaned it up, rounded off the edges a bit. And I like doing this. It's easy, it's quick, and when you have multiple layers compacted together, this works really well. Works for me. It's very functional and gives a nice little finish to it. Now you can see here in the end, the finished look. I did capture one belt hole, which kind of gives it that repurposed look. So I'm using the Tandy all-in-one leather stain and polish or wax. And I'm just finishing up the rough edges here. And staining them. This was a fun project. It was nice and quick, easy to do. And I think when you have an axe, it's important to have a sheath for it if you want to protect the edge. Unless you always want to be reprofiling it and fixing all the dings and want to have cuts everywhere. So that finished it up. It's nice and thick there on the welt on the end. Nice snug fit on the axe. This was a really fun project. Don't forget to like and subscribe and give those old things new life. Ciao.